Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, June 25th, 2020, and all I can say is wow. Joe Biden has a very strong lead in almost every single swing state nationwide. In fact, he's only underwater in 2 states, I believe. Actually, 1, because Iowa just moved over back into the Democratic column. Texas, Republican plus 0.4%. Now, I understand some people may be turned off by the idea of me just using polling data, but it is very accurate in the sense that if you look at the 2016 numbers, it was only off in 4 states, one of which was expected to go to Donald Trump. And in fact, only 1 out of the 50 states in the United States that was incorrectly predicted, or at least of those 4, was outside the margin of error, and that was the state of Wisconsin. It showed Hillary Clinton with a 6.5% lead. She ended up losing it. However, I will say that if you take a look at the numbers now, comparatively, Joe Biden should win the state of Wisconsin. Even if Donald Trump swings the state by 7%, he still loses based off the numbers we have on your screen. So, keeping that in mind, these polls will be a pretty accurate indicator of what will happen on election day. I understand that there are demographic trends and a number of other things that I do take into account in terms of the analysis, but this is the only concrete data that we have in each individual state besides primary data, which is never really a true indicator of the eventual election results, and 2018 data. And a lot of people that don't want me using polls want me to use a previous election, but when I use 2018, all of a sudden it's a Democratic wave year and all of a sudden it's invalidated. So then I go back to 2016 and then you can't use that data either because Joe Biden won't improve off that margin. But I don't really care. The data proves everything that I'm saying. So right now, Joe Biden is the favorite to win the presidency without a doubt. He's leading in every single swing state, and if you take a look at the margins, drastically outperforming the 2016 ones, which means, keeping that in mind, Joe Biden could likely win states that Hillary Clinton didn't. Will actually, 99% chance, will 100% win a state that Hillary Clinton did not. And that just has to do with the fact that the electoral map is 100% going to shift compared to 2016. Take a look at Colorado, for instance. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the state 5-6%, okay? Joe Biden leads by 18% statewide. It doesn't help that Cory Gardner is on the ballot either. In fact, he'd probably hurt Donald Trump's chances in this state. Let's take Maine, a state that swung from plus 20% for the Democratic Party down to 3% in 2016. What did that have to do with? Number 1, Hillary Clinton neglected the state itself. She was hated by voters in that northeastern region and across the country, I will say. And Joe Biden is not. In fact, take a look at the new endorsement for Joe Biden, Carly Fiorina. Can you find something more surprising? Ted Cruz's running mate from 2016. I remember watching her primary debate performance when she rose to second place practically overnight. That little silver line on RCP, I remember it clear as day, jumped up to 15% and then was out of the race within the next couple of weeks. But I will say that it is interesting. She re-entered the race as Ted Cruz's vice presidential candidate and is a pretty notable Republican. In fact, a lot of anti-Trump Republicans flocked to her during the primary, during that small period of time. So while her endorsement may not change much about the general election, it adds on to the number of Republicans for Biden that we see nationwide. That doesn't help Donald Trump in any of these states, number 1. And New Mexico, which went to Hillary Clinton by around 8%, is going to Biden by 14% according to this data. Virginia, which is a state that has solidly become a Democratic state on the presidential level, the governor level, it's going to be really difficult for the Republicans to even carry that in 2021. Can you find a GOP in a state that has become more irrelevant so quickly? I mean, the California GOP and the Virginia GOP are probably, Virginia GOP is on par with what they did in terms of becoming irrelevant in the state itself. Virginia really neglected to elect any Republicans in statewide races and, state Senate races. The Republicans went from a supermajority in 2016 down to a Democratic majority in the House of Delegates, and if you take a look at the state Senate, there's no real good news for the Republicans there. Minnesota, Hillary Clinton carried it by 1.5%. Joe Biden drastically outperforming it. And the fact that Joe Biden is only 1.2% ahead in terms of comparing it to the nation in Minnesota, despite having a 10.8% margin over Donald Trump, shows just how much support Joe Biden has gained. He has a 9.5 lead after adjusted data. If you take a look at the results released, that's for another video. If you take a look at the results released from the New York Times Siena poll, this is an A-rated pollster from FiveThirtyEight, meaning it is typically very accurate. It shows Joe Biden with a 6-point lead in Florida, 11-point lead in Wisconsin, 11-point lead in Michigan, a 10-point lead in Pennsylvania, 9-point lead in North Carolina, 7-point lead in Arizona. These are all states Donald Trump carried in 2016. I will say, yes, I will see 100% a comment of people saying this reminds me of 2016. That means they didn't get to this point in the video and they're commenting it because they didn't watch it. Whatever. But besides that, if you take a look at the data here, these are accurate polls. They almost always predict the outcome of the election. And despite what the mainstream media said in 2016, the election was close. In the final 2 weeks of the campaign, the Clinton campaign knew Michigan was going to be close. They loaded Obama, Biden, Clinton, Bill Clinton, everyone on that stage in the final week of the Michigan campaign because they knew they were going to lose that state if they didn't do something. And it wasn't enough. Wisconsin, Hillary Clinton didn't even visit it. It seemed out of reach because she had a 6.5% lead, and she ended up losing it by less than a percentage point. So even if you take that swing and apply it to the numbers that we have right now, Trump still loses. Take 2016. Yes, what if this is a repeat of 2016? Based off the swings in the polling data, Trump would lose by a much larger margin than what Hillary Clinton was even compared to even get in 2016. She was expected to carry 272 electoral votes on Election Day. I don't care what the mainstream media said. That's what the data showed, and that's the data that I'm using right now. Sure, it was narrowly wrong. It was wrong in 4 states, one of which was expected to go to Trump. I understand you may not necessarily like polls themselves. You may not necessarily like the fact that I'm using them, but it is the only concrete data that we have. And the fact that they're showing Joe Biden ahead by 9 points in North Carolina, a state that Donald Trump carried in 2016 by around 3%, 4% rounded up, well, I mean, that's not good news for the Trump campaign whatsoever. So when we take a look, number one, the national average, 9.5%. The reason why that this video is now, I guess, I'm making this video right now is because Wisconsin has officially moved further left than the national average. That did not happen in 2016. It happened in 2012. It happened in 2008. Wisconsin voted to the left of the popular vote back then. It didn't in 2016. Now that it's expected to, I mean, that shows significant improvements for the Biden campaign comparing it to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 2.1% nationwide, a whole 2%, despite losing the election and despite losing in a number of key states by less than a percentage point. She was leading by 7% up in the final 2 weeks of the campaign, and it narrowed down to a 3-point lead nationwide. That 4-point swing was enough to flip the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, states that were crucial if Hillary Clinton was to lose every other swing state and win the election. Now, Nevada, which overestimates Republicans in data, show Biden ahead by 9%. In fact, a GOP pollster today released a poll with Joe Biden ahead by 12% nationwide. So if a GOP poll is showing that, that's not exactly the best news for President Trump. I understand a lot of that data could be used to scare voters into voting, but I don't think America is going to get complacent this time. I don't think people are just going to assume Biden is going to win because Trump won once, and a lot of Democrats are not willing to make the same mistake. There's a lot of first-time voters or voters that haven't voted since Obama's 2008 victory. So if we see those levels of turnout and we see those number of minorities coming back out and voting for Biden over Trump, we could likely see some of these margins actually come out to be true on Election Day. New Hampshire, pretty solid for, literally Arizona, above Arizona, so Florida, Pennsylvania, those are states that are above 5%. Trump carried these states in 2016. These are states that were Florida, 29 electoral votes. If that one's gone, you just need one more Rust Belt state, really, or one more big Rust Belt state, Michigan or Pennsylvania. Biden wins the election. But the fact that he has Florida and Pennsylvania, so that's 49 electoral votes, add on New Hampshire, 53, Nevada, 59, Wisconsin, 69, Michigan, and then you take it all the way up to 75. No, not 85. It just gets a lot more difficult for a pathway to the presidency. Right now, I would rate the presidential race as a lean Democratic rating. I would not have rated it that in 2016. I would not have rated this 2 months ago. But as we see Republicans endorsing Trump, whether it's Carly Fiorina or a subtle endorsement from Mitt Romney or an absence of an endorsement from Paul Ryan and Speaker John Boehner, things like that, we start to note. And then you take a look at the overall leads in a lot of these battleground states. Biden takes a very solid lead in a number of them. It's not a Hillary Clinton narrow lead. She narrowly led in a number of these battleground states in 2016. Biden has a much stronger lead, which means that even if there is a drastic swing, like what we saw, not drastic, but swing in some of these key states, like what we saw in 2016, Biden still wins. That's the hard part for Donald Trump. Even if he performs as well as he did in 2016, he won a lot of those states by plurality. Biden now has a majority in those states. Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Virginia, the national average. Hillary Clinton never really hit 50%, and that was the main problem. People didn't like her. Sure, she was leading by a plurality, but a plurality doesn't win you, a lot of votes. Yes, you could lead 46 to 44, but if you're not leading in the state that matters, and you're only leading by 2% nationwide, you're probably going to lose the election. And when you take a look at the numbers now, Biden's at a 10-point lead nationwide. So even if you do say, I'm seeing a repeat of 2016, so be it. Biden still wins. Doesn't matter. So taking a look at the overall numbers released from top-rated pollsters, meaning they are very accurate in their predictions of elections, very accurate in terms of the way that they do their methodology. Their numbers are astonishing in favor of Joe Biden. I mean, I never thought I would see a day where Joe Biden led by 9% in North Carolina. I mean, are you kidding me? This is a state that Obama couldn't even carry in 2012. Arizona, a state that hasn't gone to the Democratic Party since 1996. Really? Arizona Senate race, which is even solider for the Democratic, more solid for the Democratic Party. I mean, Martha McSally, she's going to bring down Donald Trump's chances. I really don't see a pathway for her to win there. Michigan Senate, a lot of people say Michigan Senate's a toss-up. Is it? Is it really? North Carolina Senate, which Tom Tillis is the Republican incumbent. Incumbents don't have a lot of favorability in a lot of these states, but North Carolina specifically doesn't really like to re-elect their incumbents. But North Carolina governor, Roy Cooper, narrowly elected in 2016, but has a pretty solid margin in comparison to what his 2016 margin was. So while the general election data shows Joe Biden ahead by 10%, all swing states seem to be indicating the same thing as well. That's pretty much it in terms of this video. It's a little bit of an update, a little bit different than what we saw in the past. Wisconsin never really passed that national average because I still, to this day, do not think Wisconsin will vote to the left of the national average. I just don't see it happening because I do think that Wisconsin will be narrowed up on election day. But I very well could see Michigan doing it. I could see Pennsylvania doing it. And while the polling data may not necessarily reflect that now, I think as we get closer to election day, Wisconsin will probably be the only one that's actually truly going to narrow up. I think some of these states are pretty solid in terms of flipping on election day. I think Michigan is very similar to Indiana in 2008 to 2012. Narrowly went to the party for the first time in decades, and then all of a sudden, flipping back pretty solidly to its original party and won't be competitive 4 years later. And I think Michigan fits that description pretty well. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already. There's a video up on your screen, and then there's a playlist to go ahead and see my previous election predictions from 2017 to 2019. Again, please consider joining as a member on this channel. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all later today.